I want to win so bad. My hunger and appetite for success is intimidating. It scares the shit out of people. And people around me say, slow down, stop. You're doing too much. I can't help myself. I want to win. Only those that can see the invisible can do the impossible. You have to be able to see what doesn't exist in order to be able to pull off or achieve what in most people's minds seems to be impossible. Only those that can see the invisible, being able to see what's not there. What is your vision? You have to be relentless. You have to never let off the gas, never stop, never quit. Bring it on! I am not afraid!
What is up, YouTube? Live via satellite here, and today we are talking Kingdom, Manga chapter 581. So guys, I understand, I get it. I'm a little late this week. Yes, late even by my standards, alright? But it was for good reason. I was away visiting family over the holiday, and I did not have any time to record a review. In fact, I thought I was going to actually have to miss a review. But lucky for us, things wound up working out just right. Kingdom actually went on break this week, allowing me a little bit more time to actually, get a review together. So here we are. So yeah, things worked out perfectly, and I'm just glad I didn't have to miss this chapter because it was a pretty good chapter and a lot of interesting things happened. Some things that I really didn't expect. And it really just goes to show that horror knows how to keep us on our toes, man. Every time you think you have him figured out, he always seems to hit us with some new surprises.
Yep.
Alright, so the chapter starts out with us seeing the Heishin unit in the heat of battle. And again, we find ourselves zooming in on the rookies, in particular Kanto and his group. But more or less, they're just a catalyst to show us how well the Heishin unit work together. Because we find ourselves seeing a series of events where first the rookies look like they're in a pinch, and then we see Lieutenant Sosui and his cavalry save them, which puts them in a bad spot against some Zhao archers, but then we see that Commander Sugen has their back in that tight spot. Seeing all this take place, Kanto's beginning to realize that this isn't a coincidence. And even though none of the commanders spoke beforehand, and even though they're in a chaotic situation, they're still somehow able to work together. And even though Kanto's slightly puzzled by this, he doesn't have any time to think about this any further because a group of Zhao cavalry have broken through and are making their way directly for Kanto and the rookies. But the rookies almost instinctively rush forward to grab the shields of fallen soldiers and are amazingly able to perfectly pull off a Goriki. And this was just awesome to see on two fronts because first, it's just great to see a move that Kyokai had developed earlier in the series being used again on the battlefield and surprisingly by Shin's men, showing us that a lot of the training between the Heishin unit and Kyokai's men is probably still done together. But the second and more important thing about what the rookies did here by performing this Goriki, and something that I think a lot of people probably missed reading the chapter, was that all the questions that Kanto had earlier about how the veterans were able to work together without even speaking or communicating was just answered by himself along with the rookies. The only difference was it was just on a smaller scale. And this is even confirmed when Shoso arrives on the scene to help the rookies out and starts giving the rookies props on being able to pull out that Goriki without anybody giving any orders. Even saying to them that even though it's pretty fast, he believes that their view has already perhaps started to change. And what's cool about this is that this also is something that doesn't appear to be a coincidence. This is actually the byproduct of the awakenings that we got in the last few chapters. Because in the next few panels, we learn a lot more about what's going on with this awakening through Kanto's perspective. Even though he's hungry and exhausted from over 10 days of fighting and should barely be able to stand, he feels right now like he's in the best condition he's ever been. And not only did the captain's speech fill him with strength, but he also feels like there's something else. He feels like his view of the battlefield is a bit different, like he can almost see more of it, and it's easier now for him to be able to pick and choose his movements, which is a pretty big deal because moving is a lot more fun when you can actually control where you're going.
In slippery conditions, take a look at this. This man is no match for the black ice. Oh,
wow.
A simple walk to the car turned into this.
Oh my.
Oh gosh.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah, he just crashed and burned there. Luckily, he's okay. I mean, that could really hurt somebody.
Well, if I was him, I'd have stayed home and put away my Christmas decorations.
Yeah, thinking that hopefully he had a better day after that happened.
And Kanto's not the only one who notices that his vision has changed, as Shosha is keen to notice this fact as well, saying that not only has he experienced this many times before, but for him it had occurred at a much later date and only after meeting Shin. And even though Shin's an idiot, the view that stretches out before him is on a much higher level. And that since the Heishin unit was formed, all the veterans realized what an amazing captain they have, and that one day they'd like to be able to see the same view Shin sees. But even though all the old timers since meeting Shin have been growing and learning new things, they've not been able to catch up to Shin. But yet, even still, that same Shin asked them to lend him their strength. And as we see shots of some of the OG veterans giving it their all, this really begins to hit home. Because Hara has the nerve to even give our boy Taku-san some screen time. Our original squad leader from back in the day. Like, come on, Hara, the scene was already emotional enough. You're already pulling at the heartstrings. That right there, that's just a low blow.
I looked in that.
And Shosa, while taking out Morzal enemies with his spear, says to Kanto that it blows your mind, doesn't it, that even now in this desperate situation, we're still unstoppable. As Kanto can only show his gratitude, saying that he's really glad that he got into the Heishin unit. Then over at 10, we get to see that her and her men are still in awe at what the Heishin unit is able to do right now. With the way they're actually able to push this out back, 10 even believes that Gi-eun's going to be hard pressed to find a way to stop this momentum. But she also realizes that no matter what happens, they have to achieve something today. Because once their endurance reaches its limit, the recoil from this attack will be huge. Over at Gi-eun, we see that all his officers are in a panic. They can't find any way to stop the Heishin unit. They're so confused that not only are they questioning whether this is the same Heishin unit, but we actually see them try to send out one of their officers, Kozin, to handle the situation. Only problem there is they've already tried that, and unfortunately for Kozin, he's already dead. But all of this appears to be white noise to Gi-eun, as all he can think about is whether Chigaryu is actually witnessing the same thing that he is. Just like the Chin 6th grade generals of that bygone era, a repeat of the same awakening that their armies went through, saying that once they were actually able to take Akko out, they actually began to look down on the Chin right wing. But that now Ohan and Shin have undergone a transformation. And it's here, as we move over to Chigaryu, that he realizes that taking on the Heishin unit and Gyokuho units head on right now would run the very real risk of them being swallowed up by their current momentum. And with that has messages sent to both Gi-eun and Bananji, but Gi-eun doesn't need to hear the message to know what Chigaryu wants to do. And the plan is to simply fall back so that they can reevaluate the strength of both Ohan and Shin. And with the Zhao left wing beginning to disengage, surprising everyone, Ten's men begin to immediately think this is a bad thing, because with their current momentum they were hoping to be able to take Gi-eun and the others out today, while instead it looks like they're going to get away. But Ten says this may not be a bad thing either, saying that the initial goal of the right wing was to defeat their army and move forward, and if the Osen army kept pace, be able to attack the Riboku army on two fronts. But now with the enemy yielding ground, Ten believes by continuing to move the battle lines forward, they can achieve a similar effect. Shouting out to her men that this means it may finally be the chance for General Osen's army to take its first step forward after 12 whole days, and that we're finally moving towards the decisive end game. And that was the chapter in a nutshell, guys. Alright guys, so that was a pretty good chapter of Kingdom. And since we talked pretty in depth about the first part of the chapter, I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but I definitely wanted to say it was pretty cool to see some of the older members of the Hishin unit getting some action this chapter. Especially Shosa. I really enjoyed his speech / explanation about what's going on right now with the view the rookies are seeing. And I really thought it was cool that everybody's goal in the unit is to one day see the view that Shin sees. But the thing I really loved about the first half of this chapter was that it showed us how this awakening affected soldiers on an individual level. So like all the things we were seeing with Kanto, like his strength being boosted and his ability to see better on the battlefield, I don't think that was just something that was exclusive to Kanto. I think that's something that was happening to all the other rookies as well. And even though I do think that Kanto is going to be an important part of the Hishin unit moving forward, this to me is showing what the awakening was like for rookies. And I even think that for the veterans, the awakening was a little bit more substantial. But the thing that really took me by surprise this chapter was I wasn't expecting the Zal to withdraw. I was really actually expecting for Gyun and Shigaryu to be able to pull something out here and to be able to kind of stop the momentum, but it's actually looking like they have absolutely no answers for this. And if I had to have one negative critique about this chapter, it would actually be what Gyun said at the end of the chapter. Like the statement when he was discussing that they begun to look down on Shin and Ohan once Akko was out of the picture really didn't make any sense to me. And the reason being is there's no way that Gyun should have been taking these guys lightly. Time and time again, we've already seen him refer to these guys as having that smell of the 6th grade generals, or giving that aura off of the 6th grade generals. So they wanted to eliminate them before they could flourish into this. So yeah, that statement didn't really sit well with me. It just seemed like a poor excuse for why they were caught off guard by this awakening. But at the same time, we have seen time and time again that the Zal do underestimate their opponents for some reason. But the most interesting thing that we learned about the Zal's left wing withdrawing was that this may actually lead to an opening for Osun's army in the center to actually attack. And I would really love for Ten to be right here because it would be awesome to see the Osun army finally engaging Riboku's army. But until I actually see this man Osun make a move, I'm taking this one with a grain of salt. Because Osun is just so hard to predict. He and Kanki are like the two most unpredictable guys. And just like at the Battle of Kokyo Hills when everybody thought that Kanki was going to make a move and then he just sat there and did nothing. I'm not saying this has that type of feel, but it could happen. But I actually hope that Ten's right here and that we actually get to see Osun's army in action. And the one question that I started to think about was, will these two battlefields remain separate, the center and the right battlefield? Because from the diagram, it almost looks like they would be pushing them almost into the Riboku army. And if that's the case, we're going to get all types of crazy matchups. Kane, Fute, all those guys should be joining in the fray. And of course, Riboku and Osun themselves. So if things were to go down like this, that definitely would be a great finale for the ending of this arc. But anyway guys, let's move on to the comment of the week, and this week's comment comes from Miguel Valdez. And what he has to say is, Akakin in the Gyokuho would be insane, though to be fair, the Hishin has Kyokai, so I guess that's fair. But what about Moten? Does he have anyone who can be a sub-general yet? And that's actually a very valid question because when it comes to Shin and Ohan's units, they're both very well developed. We know multiple characters from both. Shin's for obvious reason because he's the main character, but even when you look at Ohan's Gyokuho, we have Adjutant Banyo, we have Kanjo, we even have Kanjo's men, Shotaku and Kyuko, and if Akaka were to join, we'd have him as well. And when it comes to Moten's group, we only actually know of Rikusen and his adjutant. So needless to say, the Gakukai unit actually needs a lot more development, and I've actually seen some pretty good theories about some gentlemen from Raigon perhaps joining them. But that's another discussion for another video. But anyway guys, that about does it for this week's review. Let me know what you guys thought about this chapter in the comment section below. Please leave a like if you guys enjoyed the video and feel free to share, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.